Assalamu alaikum, Beruchim Abim, and welcome to Chazaq's Torah Talks, Chazaq's Tuesday Timely Torah Talks program with special guests. Tonight we have with us Rabbi Yoav Robinson from Eretz Yisrael, from Eretz HaKodesh. Welcome, Rabbi. How you doing?
Baruch Hashem, thank you.
So tonight is going to be a very interesting episode, a very interesting program podcast that we have. But before we delve into tonight's topic, we'd like to ask Rabbi Yoav if you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves and the great work you're involved with in Eretz HaKodesh, in the Holy Land.
Thank you. So we'll start just a little bit of my background. I was actually born a secular Jew in Israel on a kibbutz. I am a 10th generation Israeli. So my great-great-great-grandparents probably arrived about 1777. There was a movement from Europe of Hasidim who moved to Israel. I grew up most of my life secular, and basically in my travels, in my studies, I started to get to know Yiddishkeit, Judaism, get to know Hashem, and eventually did tshuva, went to yeshiva, studied there for about 4 years, went to kollel, got my smicha as a rabbi, and decided to dedicate my life to basically helping others in whatever way possible. In the past, I used to teach and volunteer in Israeli jails to give Torah classes to inmates. I also volunteered for many years with IDF soldiers to go over there and basically, help connect them to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism. And today I've been in this organization called Yad Le'achim for the past 8 years, and I'm loving it, every moment of it. It's amazing work. It's not that easy. You'll hear in the next half an hour, but it's really satisfying to feel that I'm helping other Jews connect to Judaism and connect to their neshama, to their soul, and live a happy, successful life. Amazing.
Wow, I know firsthand of the great work that Yad Le'achim does. My friend in America, Rabbi Nassan Gans, runs the operations over here. And we're many years, Chazaq has done events together with Yad Le'achim, and we've heard the stories, we've seen the stories, unbelievable. And just recently in America, in New York, in Queens, we were involved with an issue with missionaries, and this is not something new for Chazaq. I remember as a young, energetic, youthful person when Chazaq started. I was the tender age of, I think, 15, 16. There was a missionary on one end of the block, and I would stand a little bit further down, and he would give out his pamphlets, and I would take it away from everybody else and throw it away. So some might feel that a religious Jew in a frum community, in a religious community, doesn't get affected by missionaries. How do you feel about this inaccuracy, Rabbi?
Okay, so yes, it is definitely inaccurate to say that or to think that way. The truth is, really nobody's completely immune to missionaries. And we have to understand that we kind of have to get into the mind of a missionary to understand what he wants, what he's searching for. And that's how we'll understand how to basically protect ourselves and how to not, fall into that. So first of all, we should know that for missionaries, proselytizing a Jew as opposed to a non-Jew is worth much more. So for instance, if a missionary got one Jew, it's the equivalent of maybe 1,000 or maybe 10,000 non-Jews who converted. That's the significance of the belief of missionaries. That's why, for instance, in Israel, which is, the homeland of the Jewish people, almost a billion shekels, which is the equivalent of about maybe $300 million, wow, is donated every year for missionary work in Israel alone. So there's much more money pumped into Israel as opposed to China or Africa or other parts of the world. Because again, they are interested in getting Jews to convert to Christianity, and it fulfills part of their own theology and belief. So that's one thing. Second thing is, what are missionaries looking for? Usually they are looking for the weaker, more problematic individual in a group. So when they're trained to be missionaries, they're trained to look at a group and quickly analyze who is the person who's most likely going to talk with them, listen to them, and eventually convert. And they're looking for people that have maybe social problems, less, don't have a lot of friends, or, living by themselves, lonely, are not part of a community. They're looking for people who might have issues with their family, could be their parents, could be their siblings, problems within a marriage. They're looking for people that have financial problems where they can use money as a way to, fish them into the religion. And the list goes on, but basically they're looking for someone who has an issue. Now, in any community, regardless if you're frum or not, there are people in the community that have issues, have problems to deal with. And those people are, more likely to fall into this to missionaries and to the belief. And the way it works is, it's not that they ask you, it's not like you meet a missionary and the next day is like, okay, you want to baptize now and become Christian. It's a process. So if initially they become friends, they might not even tell you that they believe in Christianity. They might even, they'll tell you, I'm Jewish. And they actually might be Jewish. I mean, there are Jews for Yoshke, Jews for Jesus. So this actually happens, and they're not lying. So they are Jewish. Their belief is not Judaism. And so they start off as a friendship. They may help you. They may give you, some counseling, some advice. And then what they were looking to is to grow and strengthen this bond, and eventually lead the person to the house of prayer, where, the church, or if it's in a person's house. And it's a process that the person doesn't feel like he's doing something wrong at any step in of the process, but eventually they might bring them into Christianity. Now, there is actually a downside for being a frum person, because a frum person is pretty sure of themselves that they know Torah. So if I know Torah, hey, this can't happen to me, right? How can I fall into such belief, into such deceit and lies? The problem is because there's this overconfidence of knowing Torah, most frum people actually are not that knowledgeable of the Tanakh, of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible. They're good in Gemara, they know the Mishnah, they know Shulchan Aruch, right? The Rishonim, Mechonim, but Tanakh, most people don't study Tanakh on a basic, on an everyday basis, except for the parts that we learn, that we read on the Haftorah, on Shabbos, and the holidays. Most people don't touch on the Tanakh. Now, the problem is the missionaries, that's their weapon. They're using the Tanakh. They're manipulating the texts, and they're using the Tanakh to try to prove and teach and manipulate the person into believing it. So someone who's frum, who doesn't know Tanakh, could potentially fall into that, because they're showing him verses from the Tanakh, and it says things that, if you take that verse out of context, you might think, wow, maybe it is talking about him. And that doubt sinks in, and they build one after the other, step by step. And that's how they can get someone completely frum into their belief. Now, I want to mention one last thing. They've translated the New Testament into Yiddish. Okay, so it's in Yiddish now. Yiddish, yes. So they're targeting, that they are looking to target frum communities. And again, within Judaism itself, if you're able to convert a frum Jew, wow, that's like the biggest fish you can find in the ocean, because it's for them to show off, hey, we got a frum Jew to convert, is much more meaningful than a secular Jew, which is again much more meaningful than a non-Jew. So it's like there's a hierarchy of who you want to get. Wow. And we've been aware in Israel, there have been several missionaries who were actually not even Jewish, who dressed frum, lived a frum lifestyle, sent their kids to frum schools, and they were not even Jewish. And their whole mission was to infiltrate the Orthodox community, create bonds and ties, look for the weakest one, and try to pull them in. Lucky for us, Yad Le'achim and a few of our affiliates were able to expose these, secret sleeper cell type missionaries. We know there's more out there. We're looking for them, but the best thing to do is to let the community know, the religious, the frum community, that yes, this is something that we should be aware of. We don't necessarily have to be afraid, but we should know that it exists and that we are a target, and we should know how to protect ourselves. And maybe we can speak about that later on. Unbelievable.
Wow. Unreal. Very, very scary. And we have to keep our eyes wide open to be extra careful about this. So what are the warning signs that we should be aware of with missionizing material and events? Like, what do you?
Okay, so the classic stuff that's been done for years is usually flyers being passed out on street corners, mailboxes. There were times they were putting in CDs and even booklets. So those things we should be aware of. We should know that when those things are passed out, children are usually more vulnerable. In Israel, by the way, there is a law which isn't really dealt with properly, but there is a law that against missionizing children. Wow. So a missionary cannot actually speak to a child about converting to a different religion. Although all of our attempts to go with parents and children to the police to report it and for it to go through the courts, it never arrived in the courts. The courts in Israel and the police haven't really done anything about it for political reasons. We know that there's a lot of pressure from the American government not to prosecute missionaries in Israel, even though they're going against the law.
Wow.
So those are the old school ways of doing missionary work was usually that. Today, we're in the new age of technology. There's social media, there's internet, there's YouTube, there's Google advertisements, and the missionaries are very keen on using those to get everywhere and anywhere. So I want to first go back and just talk about the flyer. So if you, for instance, you mentioned before that you stood on a street and you saw a missionary and you took it and you threw it out. That was great. That was exactly what you should have done. And what we tell people to do is never try to argue with missionaries because, first of all, they're trained in theology to argue back. And if you are not an expert on the subject, they may say things that you have no answers for. Now, the fact that you don't have an answer doesn't mean that there is no answer. It says that you are not, haven't been learning this subject, and therefore you don't have the answer. Now, to the community around, it will not look good if the missionary is saying things that is sounding convincing, and you all of a sudden, after arguing for a couple of minutes, have nothing to answer back. So that can cause a problem. That can bring in doubt. So I recommend not arguing with missionaries, and you're not going to convince them. It's not like I have never seen a missionary convinced to leave their religion while standing on the street. That's also a process. I can tell you from my own experience that nobody leaves the belief in one day. You have to meet them many times and talk about it and slowly build up this idea of why their belief system is wrong. So standing on the street next to them and warning the community. So I would say if you stood there, you could have said to the Jews passing by, beware, this is a missionary, this is Christianity, don't take any of the flyers. Or if you feel uncomfortable doing that, you can take people passing who took it, take it like you said and throw it in the garbage. That's one thing to do. Regarding the new media and the internet and everything else we mentioned, that becomes more problematic because if your family member, if a friend, if a neighbor has on their computer missionaries coming into their computer because it's all over the internet, it's all over YouTube, it's all over social media, then there it becomes a little bit more difficult because people might not be aware, first of all, that it's even happening. So a parent's going to have a child in their house on the computer, the parents are doing other things, and the child is meanwhile writing and learning about Christianity without the parents even knowing. So and that happens a lot. I've actually met dozens and dozens and dozens of children, of young adults, under the age of 18, who behind the backs of their parents started to believe in Christianity. And we were very lucky to catch it in time that we could actually help them realize that it's a false belief and he was not the Messiah, as they claim. So that can happen. So how do we avoid that? First of all, having open communication between parents and children, very important, very important. A child should always feel like they can ask their parents any question. I once heard from from a Haredi family, that the child asked a question and the father yelled out, oh, that's a kfira question. It's right. You're asking questions that are like completely against Hashem. That should not be the reaction of a parent. A parent should always listen to the questions. A question is just a question. It's all about how do you answer that question. So you should never make your child feel wrong about asking questions.
Right.
And now, if a parent does not know how to answer that kind of question, and that's completely normal as well, they can say, listen, there is an answer. I don't know it. but let's talk to the rabbi. Let's find the organization that deals with this. Let's talk to a theologist. We'll get you the answer. But that open communication is super important. That's the first thing. Now, second thing is, I would say, if for whatever reason a child or a family member, or even a neighbor, a member of the community has already took a step into that, nothing negative should be done against them. So if we push them away, oh, you're not welcome here. Oh, you can't daven with us. Oh, they're just going to go closer to the missionaries. They're not wanted in their own community. So what do? We have to separate between the person and their actions. We should look at this situation as separate things. We have this person. We care about this person. He's a Jew. He's part of our community. Maybe it's my child. Maybe it's my brother. Okay. I don't agree with what you're learning, what you're studying, what you believe, but I care about you. And that separation will keep a bond, an open bond between us and that person, to be able to communicate, to talk, to meet, and to bring an expert to be able to help them. So that's also very important. Never, destroy that communication, that bond. Third thing is, like I said, make sure that you know what your children, where your children are on the internet. I mean, apart from missionaries, there's all sorts of weird and dangerous stuff on the internet. Okay, there's predators, there's all sorts of stuff. So yes, we should be aware. We should know what our children are doing, what our teenagers are doing on the internet. We should ask them. And certain signs might show stuff up. For instance, if all of a sudden our children, or again, and whoever this person is, are speaking in different phrases, different, maybe even using different verses from the Bible, are all of a sudden mentioning, different prophets and different chapters and different things, that should ring, that should ring a bell, meaning there's something going on here. Why are they all of a sudden talking about the Bible?
Right.
Why are they all of a sudden talking, about different theological things that we are not so familiar with in the day-to-day, life of a religious family, or even a secular family? All of a sudden, the person is becoming more, religious. We should find out, where is it coming from? Where are they getting their information? Where are they learning this? Another thing to be aware of is that all of a sudden a person can be very happy. Okay, it's very natural that if someone starts something new, whatever it might be, it's going to make them feel good. It could be a diet, it could be sports, it could be anything, but it can make them feel good, which is great. But when it comes from, Christianity, we should know about it. We should know how to deal with it. So if all of a sudden someone seems very happy and elevated and, and glowing, we should try to find out why. What's going on there? Ask them.
Unbelievable. Wow. I see, Rabbi Yoav, you have experience with this. And like they say, you've been there, right? With what I understand, you've been there.
Yes. Sadly to say, I have the experience. I always pray, I always wish for that I don't have to do what I do. My dream is to become, I always say, like, when Geula comes, when the redemption comes, when Mashiach finally comes, that I'll be able to be like a history teacher, right? I'll be able to teach the history of Galus,
in the past,
in the Galus, in exile, right? What happened? That's what I wish for. But until that happens, sadly to say, I have to work in this, help give therapy to people and help them come out of Christianity into Judaism.
Unbelievable. So this is one of the amazing things that Yad La'achim is involved with. And we know that another division, another part of what they do is the rescuing. And maybe the rabbi could describe for us a little bit of a few of your great rescue missions that you were involved with regards to Yad La'achim. Yes.
So maybe I'll just mention to the audience viewing us that Yad La'achim is comprised from a few divisions. One of them is, like we mentioned, is the division that deals with missionaries in Christianity. Another division has to do with education. So we help enlist children and teenagers into Jewish schools, religious schools, and even from schools.
That's what Chazaq does in New York.
And the Yad La'achim has been doing that for more than 70 years. That was the original thing that the organization did. And the third division is the division basically fighting assimilation and intermarriage. So we deal with Jewish women and also Jewish men who are, either dating or in a relationship or married to a non-Jew. The majority of the work is with Jewish women who are married to Arabs, to Muslim Arabs. And we help them because these women are, the majority of them are abused. I mean, in general, in the Muslim Arab culture, it's actually mentioned in the Quran. It's written in the Quran. I've studied the Quran. I've learned it. There's a place to abuse a woman and the children for educational purposes. So, for instance, I always say this. If I hear my neighbors, beating chas v'shalom, beating my wife, beating their wife, I would call the police right away. Save her life. In an Arab village, when Arabs hear a woman being beaten, nobody calls. Nobody does anything because it's the husband's right to beat his wife. So a lot of these women go through terrible abuse, physical, mental, financial abuse. The children, these children who are Jewish children, are also going through terrible abuse. And these are Jewish women who, again, I'm generalizing, but the majority of them come from broken families, from the lower social economical background. Some of these women have themselves been abused before. Some of these women have no fathers; they're orphans from a father. So the majority of them have, I would say, emotional, issues. And these Arab men, they have a few reasons. Why are they getting married with a Jewish woman? Can't they find an Arab woman? Well, there's a few reasons for that. One reason is it's in their community, it's forbidden to date before marriage. Similar to our Jewish, religious frum community. There's no such thing as dating before marriage, right? We marry and then we start a family. So what happens is to get married, you have to also come up with a huge amount of money to basically like an idunia, right? To give the man gives this to the woman's family to basically buy the woman. Now, if you're 18, 19 years old, where are you going to come up with $100,000 to give to that woman's family? You don't have the money now. You're going to have to work for several years, save up, and then you can be able to do that. So a lot of these men are saying, well, but I want to date someone. So they're looking to the Jewish community, to the Jewish secular community, okay? Not only, but the majority is secular, but there's also religious women or so I would say young women who fall into this. And what are they looking for? They're looking, again, for that weaker woman, for that woman who has, low self-esteem, no confidence, has issues. And what do? They show her love. They buy her gifts. They're romantic. They're doing, for many, many months, they could put up this show, basically, trying to win her love. And a lot of these young women are not aware of where it's going to lead to them to, they can never imagine that, and next year I'll be stuck in a village without a phone, beaten every day, forced to become a Muslim. They would never imagine that. If they thought that would happen to them, they would stop the relationship. And a lot of times he builds this up to be able to marry her and to bring her into his village. He will say whatever he needs to say to convince her to come over. Once she's in the village, she's stuck. She can't leave. He disconnects her from her family, from her friends. She can't visit anybody. I mean, she's in prison. She's mamish in prison. This is a real prison. So he does this. That's one of the reasons. Another reason why he does it is because this is like a terror attack, right? A lot of these Arabs are interested in hurting the Jewish people, right? We're at war with them for so long. And, suicide bombings, rockets, guns and knives, those things have not stopped us. So another way for them to get to the Jewish people is to take one of their girls. And by doing that, it's like these circles around this girl. So her immediate family, it breaks them. All of her friends, it breaks them too. It's so painful to know that your family member or your friend is stuck in an Arab village and there's nothing you can do to help her. And so that leads this woman there. Now, once she's there, very quickly she's pregnant with children. And in the Muslim law in Israel and in general, when there's a divorce, the Muslim courts will give the children to the father. as opposed to most courts around the world, where custody usually is half-half, or mother gets full custody. It's usually with the courts. In Muslim courts, it's the opposite. There's no half and half. The children are always with the father. Now, she knows this. Now, if she tells them that she wants to leave, she knows she's never going to see her children again. So most mothers can't leave. It's too painful. So that keeps her in this vicious cycle of abuse, of being just taken away everything. There's women who tell us after we rescued them, oh, for so many years I wanted to light Shabbos candles. I wanted to have matzah for Pesach. I wanted to light Chanukiah, menorah for Hanukkah. I couldn't do those things. If I even asked him, I just asked him if I could do it, he would beat me. So we at Yad Le'achim have this opportunity to do this outreach and reach out to these women through the phone, through Facebook, through internet, through whatever means possible, to try to get to them, to talk to them, and to explain to them that we are here to help them leave the village. Now, I want to tell you a few stories.
Sure.
The first story actually is a very, very, very happy story, because just recently, about 2 months ago, I was at an amazing wedding. And in this wedding, the father comes up to me. He knows who I am. He gives me a huge hug, and he tells me, Yoav, thank you for saving my son's life. Okay? He says nobody else knows his son. Nobody else knows what's going on. Nobody knows who I am, but he gives me this huge hug, and he's got tears in his eyes, and he says thank you. What was the story? 2 years ago, we get a call from a desperate mother listen to this, from a frum community. Her son, age 18, left the house. He's disappeared. We don't know where he is. Okay? But the mother says, I have a feeling that he went to an Arab village, and he's decided to become Muslim.
What?
Okay, that's the call. First of all, you should know this is pretty unusual. We usually get women who, through a relationship, become Muslim, not because of theology. Okay. So we get the call. We try to, use we have connections. I can't say too much, but we have connections, and we have informants, and we have intelligence, like the army, to gather information. So the information comes to us after 2 days that yes, he is actually in a mosque in an Arab village in the center of Israel, and he's been there for the last 2 weeks. And apparently he's converted to Islam. Okay. Later on, I would learn that one of the reasons why he did this was that he was a confused young man. He had troubles in school. He had trouble learning, and one thing led to another. He felt like he wasn't a part of anything. And later on, I'll explain why it's so important that we show care and love to our community, to our members in our community, in our schools, in our family, because this was basically a lack of love, a lack of care. He felt like he was all alone. And this place, this mosque was actually, there's only in all of Israel, there's 2 mosques that are working on doing missionary work for Islam. Okay, so it's not Christianity, it's Islam, but they're doing outreach for Islam. So they were able to contact him. I don't know exactly how, and they convinced him to come and join them, and he did. So it was Rosh Chodesh Elul, like 2.5 years ago, and I'm actually sitting in a shiur, in a Torah class, and we're eating, and we're saying L'chaim, we're studying. It's Rosh Chodesh Elul, we're preparing. Right, Tishrei is coming, Rosh Hashanah, and I get a phone call. It must have been 11:30 at night. I get a phone call from one of one of the guys in our organization. He's the head of the security, and he tells me, "Listen, we got a phone call from the guy. He's having a hard time in the mosque. He's thinking about leaving. He wants to, desperately, he wants to talk to someone. Nobody else is available right now. Are you available to go?" Because he knew where I was, and he knew I was relatively close. I was, another security guy that works with us, it could have taken him an hour and a half to get there. I was 20 minutes away. So I say, of course, I'll do it. I say l'chaim with everybody in the table. I say, wish me luck. In the merit of this Rosh Chodesh of the month of Elul, I'm going in. Okay. I go to my car. I change my clothes so I don't look from. I put a baseball cap on. It was.
What do you do with that beard?
I actually, it was like a few months after the corona started here. So I put on a mask. I put on my windows. I have like this thing that I can tint my windows. It's like a fabric that makes my windows dark. And I also thought to myself, it's 12, it's after 12 o'clock at night. There's not going to be a lot of people in the Arab village. Hopefully nobody's going to recognize me. Nobody's going to stop me. But I knew I had to get there quickly. This was the time he was ready to leave. He wanted to speak to someone. And there was, I didn't want to waste any minute. So I went in, to be honest with you, I usually am not the person doing the rescues. I don't speak Arabic. I'm not fluent in Arabic like our security guys that work with us. They are, completely fluent in Arabic. They dress like Arabs. They know all the nuances of a Muslim. They can go into a mosque and pray like a Muslim. So they're the guys that usually rescue these women out. They take the women and children. These are highly trained professionals who served in the IDF in very sensitive commando units who are trained to do this. They're like basically like a spy, okay? And I'm not, but I had to go. So I went in there and, I said a prayer before I went in. Hashem should be with me and it should be successful. And when I went in, an Arab village it's in Israel, and it's not built like a regular city. Where most cities, you have blocks, you have, streets, avenues, it's more or less, you've got numbers. In the Arab villages, the construction and the building is chaotic. Like some of the roads aren't even, paved. They're not even straight. The numbers can jump around without any logic. And, I'm looking for this mosque. I can't find it. And I'm going into different alleys and it's like one way and it's like no end. And it's like, I'm starting to sweat. Okay. And I know the guy's waiting for me. So eventually, Baruch Hashem, thank God, I was able to reach the mosque. I told the guy, don't take anything with you except for your wallet and your phone. Leave your bag with all your clothing, with everything you had. Leave it there because they're going to suspect you. Come outside. Tell him you're going out for a cigarette. Come outside. I told him what my car looked like. And I said, just get into the car and we're leaving. And that's exactly what happened. He came in. We drove out. Thank God. We got out of the village. I could take down all the things on my windows, and now starts a process. Again, this guy wasn't completely ready to leave. He still saw himself as a Muslim. He still believed in the theology. So now started a process that took more than a year to bring him out of Islam and back into Judaism. Eventually, I was able to bring him into the yeshiva. So he went back into yeshiva. He did tshuva, complete tshuva, and he got a shidduch, and 2 months ago was his wedding.
Wow!
So I was very, very happy. Very, it was an amazing wedding to be in, and this is he's starting off his new life as a married couple and with all the good things.
That is a crazy story, Rabbi. Whoa!
I want to tell you another story. Do we have a few more minutes?
Sure, of course.
Okay, so I also sometimes, because of my work with missionaries, I want to meet a man who converted to Christianity, and I want to meet him to talk to him about theological concepts and belief, and to try to pull him back into Judaism. So I had a young man who actually comes from a traditional family, not a religious from family, but a traditional, what's called Masorti, and he converted to Christianity. And he told his parents, I'm not going to meet any rabbi. I'm not going to meet anybody on the subject. So there was no way for me to meet him. I look like a rabbi. What am I going to do? So I decided, what? Okay, for the sake of meeting this person, maybe I should, take my hat off, take my jacket off, and dress a little different. So I dressed up in a baseball cap and a Hawaiian shirt. I tucked in my tzitzis, And I came with flip-flops. I looked like I came from the beach. Right? All I needed was a surfboard. And you probably ask yourself, how do you hide this beard, right? But the truth is, I'm very lucky. In the past few years, it's become very fashionable for secular Jews and non-Jews to have beards. I think they call it hipsters. You probably heard this or seen this, right?
Yeah.
It's like in Israel, you see a guy with a long beard. I want to tell him, I think you dropped your kippah because the way your beard looks, you must be from. Anyway, so I came to this meeting. We sat in a mall. This was the only place they wanted to meet. And I was very lucky that they wanted to speak to me. They didn't feel like, I was a frum person. And again, I never lie. So if they asked me, are you frum? I would say yes. I never lie. But, I can choose to dress a little bit different. And we sat there for several hours. I think it was almost 7 hours in the food court of the mall.
Wow.
With an open Tanakh, with an open Bible, with an open New Testament, right? The Christian book. And halfway through the session, a guy walking by next to us notices that I'm speaking about Yoshke, about Christian theology. He looks down, he sees a New Testament. So what does he do? He goes around the other side of the food court. He pulls out his camera. He takes a picture of me. He calls Yad Le'achim and he tells them, there is a missionary in the mall trying to convert the young man. Lucky for me, they knew I was at the mall. They told him, don't worry, it's one of our guys. But that's also something that can happen.
That is hilarious.
By the way, though, it was a very successful meeting. From that meeting came many other meetings. At the end of the first meeting, I told them, listen, I usually don't dress like this. I came clean and I told them I don't dress like this. I only dressed like this because I knew that you would not meet me. And I thought that it's worth, for the sake of meeting you and talking, to, change my dress code. And they were perfectly fine with it. They didn't feel like I lied to them or fooled. And the next meetings, I already came dressed like this. And by the way, they left Christianity. They did tshuva. And Baruch Hashem, they're connected now to a weekly Torah class on Zoom. Amazing.
Wow, these stories are such chizuk, such inspiration. And it just shows us how amazing Klal Yisrael is, that we have such organizations, such rabbis, such individuals that go the extra mile to save our fellow brothers and sisters, to do kiruv v'chukim, to reach out to those that are far. So Rabbi, there's this major focus on kiruv v'chukim, and justly so. Obviously, it's very important to reach out to those that are far. Chazaq over here in Queens, in New York, in America, we're working yom v'layla, day and night. But and of course Yad La'achim and Eretz Yisrael. But how do we strengthen our families in the sense of kiruv keruvim, to be mekarev, to bring close those that are near, those that are intern, those that are with us, so that we don't have to work on those that have fallen off, in a sense.
Right. So very similar to what I mentioned before is the importance of having a healthy, open relationship, to be able to speak about everything. A child that does not feel like they're loved is going to look somewhere else for that love. It could be with an Arab man. It could be in Christian church, and it could be in other cults. I mean, there's many other cults around us that are also dangerous, not just Christianity. So love, caring, showing interest. Sometimes we have families that have many children, and it feels like it's overwhelming, but it's not about the quantity of time you give a child, it's the quality. It could be only a few minutes, a sentence, asking a question that shows that you care, that you're interested in their life, that you're interested in what they're doing, that you're interested in what they're interested in. Those are things that are important to do. Telling our children, telling our family members, I care about you, I love you, you're important. You're so valuable to us. Those are things that are important. It's almost like, it's like a plant, right? For a plant to live, you have to take care of it. You have to water it. You have to give it sunlight, right? You have to nourish it. We have to nourish, right? Emotionally, spiritually, and even physically, our family members, our community, even our neighbors. We have a neighbor who's lonely. We should invite him for Shabbos meals, send him a cake, ask how he's doing, Be interested. Show that make him feel like he's part of our community. That's very important. These are the ways to do kiruv on the kroivim, making sure that those that are close to us are continuing and staying close to us. And that's, I can't emphasize that enough. It is so important to do that. And that's really the best way to avoid all of the problems that can arise, not just in, like we mentioned before, intermarriage, assimilation in Christianity, but, drugs and alcohol and all sorts of stuff that can come up. So that's basically, in my opinion, the way to do that. I just want to mention one thing. If you look behind me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I should say, first of all, I'm sitting right now in a room. I chose this room specifically for the Zoom meeting, for this interview. So this is a room that is used on a daily basis with a social worker or therapist to meet a young woman or an older woman and their children who we helped take out of Arab villages. Also, Jews who were in Christianity and other cults. This is the room where we give therapy, where we basically talk and help and go through a process.
Over the years, how many women would you say have?
I would say thousands and thousands of women sat here. These walls are full of the stories, the tears, the laughter, the healing process that these women, children, and men went through. This poster right here actually is a poster that's, we're coming close now to Purim. I want to just translate. It says, this year I'm dressing up for Purim like my father. Right? Wow. This is the story of a Jewish boy. His name is Ahmed, but he's the son of Sarah. He's a Jewish boy, but he's growing and identifying himself as a Muslim, as an Arab. Okay, and every year, this is part of what we are trying to do, is trying to get more and more of these families, these women, these children out, so they can celebrate Purim like a Jew would celebrate it, right? And the second poster here, I don't know if it's kind of hard to see, but it's a picture of a tree with like a little piece of paper that was attached with a staple, and it says, "A Jew has gone lost. The person who finds should call this number." A lost Jew. This is talking about Jews falling into Christianity. This is the lost Jew, right? It's that has gone lost, and it basically talks about how the missionaries are working to capture and take Jews, these innocent Jews. So this is the work we do.
Unbelievable. I will never forget the video of Rabbi Yoav Zechet Tzaddik with the children that Yad L'Achim have rescued, and they came to him one time, and he would give the slap. It was just so inspiring to see how many children have been saved, literally saved, physically, spiritually, and the work that you guys do is just unbelievable. I'd just like to make one point. There's Christianity, there's Islam. I heard a chidush, an insight once, that the reason why there's two major religions in the world is because if there would only be one, then people would say, oh, you have to go after the rove, after the majority. The fact that there's two majorities shows that one for sure is 100% wrong, and it shows that it centers how Yiddishkeit, Judaism, if you would ask Islam, where did you start from, or Christianity, where do you start from, or what other religion, if not yours? It just shows the call, the power, the amazingness of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism. I'd have to tell you, you're the expert. But I got to tell you, Rabbi Yoav Robinson, the chizuk is unbelievable. The inspiration is unbelievable. But before we let go of you, we hope we could continue on and on forever, but it's not possible. The final question is one final message. But before you tell us a final message, how does one learn more about these stories of the work that you're involved with and stuff? Is there like a...
Yes. So if people are interested in hearing more and viewing, more stories, we have a YouTube channel they could go into. It's called Yad Le'achim. You can go on YouTube and watch it. Most of the stories we can't really tell because most of the families, it's personal, it's private. But yes, there are stories on YouTube of women actually talking about what happened to them. So you can watch. They're telling their story. You can also watch an actual extraction from an Arab village. That we had a crew, a television video crew came with us for an extraction like that. So you can watch that as well. And just keep updated. Our YouTube channel, we have a Facebook account as well. These are things that are updated all the time. You can watch, you can learn.
Sure Yad L'Achim also has a regular website for those that might not be able to go.
Yes, we have a website. On our website, we update stories all the time in English. Every week, several stories come up.
Very interesting. So one final message that all of us could take back, our large audience, our crowd. What do you say, Rabbi Yoav Robinson?
So I think the a powerful message that we can take with us is that I think it's almost inherent that every Jew wants to help another Jew, right? It's a natural thing.
We're all one.
Exactly. So we should know that to be able to help another Jew, we also have to help ourselves. Okay, what does that mean? What does it mean to help myself? That means that when I'm interested in going out there, doing kiyuv, helping, whatever it might be, doing charity work, doing tzedakah, I should, before I do that, before I take that action, before I take that step, I should stop and focus with myself. How am I going to also grow and change from that? How can I take upon myself one more mitzvah? Maybe I should stop and learn another Mishnah. Maybe I should stop and learn, say a kapitel Tehillim, one more psalm of Tehillim. But I should do something spiritual to connect myself even higher that I can influence. The idea is that to become a beacon of light, we have to connect to the powerhouse, which is Hashem, God, right? If we're connected to Him, we're going to light this world up. Mm-hmm. Okay? So before I run out, it's like almost like this. A firefighter, before he goes to take out the fire, he has to take all of his stuff with him, all of his equipment, right? He has to connect the hose to the water hydrant. He's got to make that connection to the source to be able to, put out the fire. So if we want to light up the world, we got to make sure we are connected. And doing that is taking a moment, reflecting how I can transform, how I can change, what little thing I can do for myself to grow. Because when I grow, I'm going to be able to influence more people, help more people, and elevate more people. But I have to remember, I have to be connected to God. I have to be connected to Hashem. So that's my advice. See how you can do one little thing to connect yourself even more, and then you'll be able to help, hundreds, thousands, infinite amounts of Jews.
Unbelievable, amazing final message. Rabbi Yoav Robinson, it was a pleasure. It was a mamash and an honor to be able to have you on the program. We want to remind everyone every single Tuesday, Chazaq Torah Talks, amazing Tuesday night guests, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to tell your family, your friends, your neighbors, and encourage others to be inspired and to hear these amazing, inspiring talks. Rabbi Yoav, I want to thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
It's amazing. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we shall all see you together, the Yerushalayim Ir B'niyah, with the Geulah Shlema, with the complete redemption. It should come by Mirah B'Ameinu, speeding our days. Amen. Chazaq Baruch.